My twin sister stole my identity to ruin my credit, so I returned the favor with her wedding. Maya and I were identical in every way except morals. For 23 years we shared everything, close friends, even boyfriends occasionally. What I didn't know was that she'd been sharing my social security number too. I discovered it when I was denied from my dream apartment. The landlord looked at me like I was complete scum. Ma'am, your credit score is 340. You have $47,000 in unpaid debts across 17 different counts. My blood turned to ice. I'd never owned a credit card in my life. That night I pulled my credit report and nearly vomited. Maya had opened 17 accounts in my name over 3 years. She bought a BMW, funded her master's degree, taken luxury vacations, and apparently lived off cash advances while I worked double shifts at a diner to save money for my future. The worst part, she'd been living in a luxury downtown loft with marble countertops while I shared a cramped studio apartment with two roommates who left dirty dishes everywhere. When I confronted her the next morning, she didn't even have the decency to deny it. I needed the money, she said casually, filing her perfectly manicured nails. Besides, we're twins. What's mine is yours, right? I figured you'd understand. You destroyed my entire financial future. Maya, she shrugged like I'd complained about borrowing a sweater. You'll figure it out. You always do. You're the responsible one. Remember, for 6 agonizing months I tried fixing it through legal channels, fraud reports, police statements, credit disputes, lawyer consultations. Maya had been incredibly careful. She knew my social security number, my mother's maiden name, my first pet's name, everything needed to convince banks and credit companies that she was actually me. The fraud investigators told me twin identity theft was nearly impossible to prove without video evidence of her physically making the purchases. It's essentially her word against yours, and she's covered her tracks well. Maya got engaged that fall to Richard, a successful investment banker who thought he was marrying sweet, financially responsible Maya, the same Maya who was planning their elaborate dream wedding with my stolen money. I found out about the engagement when she sent me a formal invitation with gold embossing. I want you as my maid of honor, she said over coffee, beaming. We're family and family should celebrate together. That's when the realization hit me like a freight train. Legal justice wasn't coming fast enough, but there were other kinds of justice available. I started planning my revenge. Richard had absolutely no idea who he was really marrying. Maya had crafted this perfect false image, told him she was completely debt-free, had excellent credit, and worked as a volunteer coordinator at a non-profit instead of admitting she'd never held a real job longer than 3 months. For the next 6 months I became the supportive sister she thought. I'd always be helpful, involved in every single wedding detail. I offered to handle all the vendors. Since Mia was so busy with her demanding nonprofit work, I insisted on paying deposits up front to help with their cash flow situation. Richard thought it was incredibly generous and kept praising Mia for having such a wonderful, giving sister. What he didn't know was that I was methodically building an airtight paper trail. Every single vendor contract I signed included detailed liability clauses that I'd carefully crafted with the help of a lawyer friend. Every payment came with extensive documentation clearly stating the purchaser's identity and complete responsibility for any damages or unpaid balances. I made absolutely certain that my name appeared nowhere as the financially responsible party. Maya, meanwhile, was living it up like some kind of socialite princess. She'd started using my name for everything again: expensive spa treatments, designer dress fittings, jewelry shopping, even a weekend trip to Paris for her bachelorette party with 6 bridesmaids, all charged to credit cards in my name that she'd somehow managed to keep active despite my numerous fraud reports. I documented absolutely everything: photos of her physically using my credit cards at restaurants and stores, screenshots of her social media accounts showing off purchases I'd never made, tagged with locations I'd never visited, bank statements proving that I was working overtime shifts just to afford my basic living expenses while she charged thousands of dollars to my accounts daily. I created spreadsheets tracking every fraudulent purchase. I photographed receipts she'd carelessly thrown away. I even hired a private investigator to follow her for a week, documenting her spending habits and lifestyle that was completely incompatible with her claimed income. The investigator's report was damning. Maya would start her days at expensive coffee shops, charging $15 lattes and pastries to my American Express card. She'd spend hours at high-end boutiques trying on clothes that cost more than my monthly rent. She'd get weekly manicures and pedicures at exclusive salons, always putting it on my stolen cards. Her social media told the story perfectly: photos of her in designer outfits with tags still attached, videos of her at expensive restaurants ordering the most expensive items on the menu, selfies from luxury spas where she'd get $200 facials and massage treatments. Meanwhile, my own social media showed the reality of my life: pictures of me in my diner uniform, exhausted after double shifts, posts about having to choose between groceries and gas money, photos of my tiny apartment with hand-me-down furniture and a mattress on the floor. The contrast was stark and infuriating. 3 weeks before the wedding, I met with Richard's best friend Jake at a quiet coffee shop downtown. I need to show you something extremely important, I said seriously, but you have to promise to hear me out completely before you react. Jake was a corporate lawyer with a reputation for being thorough and fair. He understood evidence and legal implications. I laid out everything methodically: the credit reports showing years of fraud, the bank statements proving the financial damage, the photos of Maya using my identity, the police reports that had somehow been dismissed or ignored. Jake's face grew progressively paler with each document I presented. Jesus Christ, he whispered, studying the evidence. She's been systematically defrauding you for years. This isn't just identity theft, this is organized financial abuse, and now she's about to defraud your best friend in an even bigger way. I showed him Maya's completely fabricated employment records and financial statements that she provided to Richard. Richard thinks she makes $85 a year doing non-profit work. He believes she has $30,000 in personal savings and excellent credit. He's planning their entire financial future based on these lies. She's never held a real job longer than 3 months in her entire adult life. The only money she has access to came directly from stealing my identity. Then I revealed the most damaging piece: recent credit applications from the past month where Maya had listed Richard's income and employment information to qualify for even more credit cards in my name. She's planning to destroy my credit even further using his financial information as collateral. I explained after they're legally married, the financial damage will increase exponentially. Shared assets, shared debt, shared legal responsibility for everything she's done. Jake studied the documents for a long time before speaking. This is criminal conspiracy, he said finally. She's not just stealing from you anymore. She's planning to use Richard as an unwitting accomplice. After marriage, he could be held legally responsible for debts she accumulates in your name using his income as qualification. Exactly, I said. She's setting him up to be her next victim while continuing to destroy my life. Jake closed the thick folder of evidence and stared at me intently. What exactly do you want me to do with this information? I want you to help me make sure Richard knows exactly who he's marrying before he legally binds himself to a criminal, I said firmly. And I want Maya to face real consequences for what she's done to both of us. We spent the next 2 hours developing a comprehensive strategy that would expose Mia's crimes publicly while protecting Richard from further financial damage. Jake knew the legal system inside and out, and he helped me understand exactly how to present the evidence for maximum impact. The key is timing. He explained we need to present this when she can't deny it, can't run, and can't manipulate the situation when she's trapped and has to face the truth in front of everyone who matters to her. The wedding, I said. Immediately the wedding, he agreed. We refined the plan over several more meetings. Jake would position Richard's family and key guests in advance, making sure they understood the seriousness of the situation. I would handle the documentation and evidence presentation. We'd coordinate the timing to ensure maximum impact while giving Richard the information he needed to protect himself legally. Jake also connected me with an FBI contact who specialized in identity theft cases, Agent Sarah. Chan reviewed my evidence and confirmed that Maya's actions constituted multiple federal crimes. Twin identity theft is particularly difficult to prosecute, Agent Chen explained. But you've documented this incredibly well. The evidence is overwhelming. She agreed to attend the wedding as backup in case Mia tried to flee or became violent when confronted. The week before the wedding, Mia's spending reached insane levels. She charged $3,000 for her wedding dress alterations, another $2,000 for professional hair and makeup trials, $500 for shoes and accessories, $800 for lingerie and perfume. Every purchase was documented, every charge was photographed, every receipt was saved. She even used my credit to pay for her bridesmaid's spa day, costing $1,200. 6 women to get massages and facials. The bridesmaids had no idea they were being pampered with stolen money. The rehearsal dinner alone cost $4,000 charged to my Visa card. Maya ordered premium champagne and the most expensive entree for 30 guests. She gave a speech about family and love and gratitude while literally stealing from me to pay for the evening. I smiled and applauded along with everyone else, knowing that in less than 24 hours her world would collapse completely. The morning of the wedding, Maya stood in her $3,000 designer dress that she'd charged to my American Express card, completely unaware that her perfect day was about to transform into an absolute nightmare. I arrived at the venue early to help with final preparations, carrying a large accordion folder filled with meticulously organized evidence. You look absolutely beautiful, I told her, and genuinely meant it. Maya had always been stunning: perfect bone structure, flawless skin, natural charisma. It's a huge part of how she'd managed to get away with everything for so long. The venue was truly spectacular, a historic mansion overlooking the lake with manicured gardens and marble terraces, costing $15,000 just for the day rental. Maya had charged every penny to my American Express card that somehow still hadn't been canceled despite multiple fraud reports. The florist had created elaborate arrangements with white roses and peonies, costing $3,000. The photographer was a renowned artist, charging $5,000 for the day. The string quartet practicing in the corner had been hired for $2,000. Every single expense charged to my stolen credit guests began arriving promptly at 2 p.m. Dressed in their finest formal wear, Richard's family filled one side of the chapel. Doctors, lawyers, successful business owners, old money families who valued reputation and financial stability above almost everything else. Maya's family occupied the other side, looking slightly intimidated by the obvious wealth and status of Richard's connections. Our parents had always been middle-class, honest people who worked hard for everything they had. They had no idea their daughter had been living a completely fabricated life for years. At 2:30, Richard pulled me aside privately in the mansion's library. "I need to thank you personally for everything you've done," he said earnestly. "Maya told me how incredibly supportive you've been, helping with wedding costs when her non-profit work doesn't pay as much as she'd like. You're an amazing sister." My heart pounded as I prepared to destroy his world. "Actually, Richard," I said gently, "we really need to talk about that before the ceremony begins." I handed him a thick manila envelope with his name written in careful script. "These are the real vendor contracts for today's wedding and Maya's actual financial records. I think you need to see them before you make this legal commitment." His hand shook slightly as he opened the envelope. I watched his face change as he processed what he was reading. Confusion turned to shock, shock turned to disbelief, and disbelief turned to rage. This can't be right, he whispered, flipping through page after page of evidence. Maya doesn't have any credit cards. She told me she pays cash for everything because she doesn't believe in debt. Every single charge you're looking at was made with credit cards opened illegally in my name, I explained. Quietly, Mia has been using my social security number and personal information to fund your entire relationship. Richard's face drained of all color as he began to understand the magnitude of Maya's deception. The apartment you think she pays for with her non-profit salary charged to my stolen credit, the BMW she drives financed using my identity, this wedding, every single expense is on credit cards she opened by pretending to be me. He continued, reading, his hand shaking more violently with each page. She even used your income information to qualify for additional cards, I continued. After marriage, you'd be legally responsible for helping pay debts she accumulated by stealing my identity. Richard looked up at me with horror in his eyes. How long has this been going on? 3 years, maybe longer. He sat down heavily in a leather chair, the evidence scattered around him. Everything she's told me about herself is a lie. Everything. At 2:45, as guests were being seated in the beautiful chapel, Richard's parents approached me with barely controlled panic in their expressions. We understand there's been some kind of serious mistake, his mother said carefully, her voice tight with stress. Richard mentioned significant irregularities with the wedding payments and Maya's financial information. I showed them everything systematically, the credit reports documenting years of systematic fraud, the police documentation that had been filed and mysteriously dismissed, the overwhelming evidence that their son's fiancé had been using my stolen identity to fund their entire relationship and plan their wedding. Richard's father, a prominent attorney himself, reviewed the documents with professional scrutiny. This is organized criminal fraud, he said grimly. Multiple federal crimes. If Richard marries her, he could be held liable as an accessory after the fact. His mother's face was pale with shock and anger. That woman has been lying to our entire family for over a year. We've welcomed her into our home, included her in family events, treated her like a daughter. She's very good at manipulation. I said she's had years of practice. Richard joined us, his face set in grim determination. I've made my decision, he announced. This wedding is not happening and Mia is going to face consequences for what she's done. Where exactly is Mia getting ready right now? Richard's father asked, his voice deadly calm in the way that wealthy, powerful men sound when they're about to destroy someone's life. The bridal suite was located on the mansion's elegant second floor overlooking the gardens. Maya was having her makeup professionally retouched, surrounded by 6 bridesmaids in lavender silk dresses and her mother, who was crying happy tears. Maya, I said softly, knocking and entering the room. We need to talk privately right now. She looked absolutely radiant, glowing with confidence and joy even when I firmly closed the door behind us and asked everyone else to give us a moment. She didn't sense any danger approaching. What's wrong, honey? You look so serious. Are you nervous about the ceremony? Don't worry, everything's going to be perfect. I handed her a credit card statement. $12,000 charged in just the past month alone, all in my name. This needs to stop today, right now. Maya barely glanced at the statement, waving it away dismissively. I honestly don't know what you're talking about. This is my wedding day. Can't we discuss whatever this is later? I need to finish getting ready. The vendor contracts for this entire wedding are written in my name, I said slowly and clearly. The legal liability for every expense today falls directly on me if payments aren't made. But here's the thing, Maya, I never signed a single contract or authorized any payments for the first time. Genuine uncertainty flickered across her perfectly made-up face. What are you talking about? I handled all the wedding arrangements myself using credit cards you opened illegally in my name, I said firmly, using my social security number, my personal information, my identity. You've been committing federal crimes for years. Maya's confident expression began to crack. You're being dramatic. I borrowed some money, that's all. I'll pay it back. $50,000. Maya, you've stolen $50,000 from me and you've been using Richard's income to qualify for even more credit in my name. She stood up abruptly, her wedding dress rustling. You're trying to ruin my wedding day out of jealousy, Maya. I need you to confess everything right now to Richard, to his family, to everyone downstairs. Tell them exactly what you've done with my identity and my credit. She laughed, but it sounded forced and brittle. You're being completely ridiculous. It's my wedding day. I'm not confessing to anything because I haven't done anything wrong. Actually, I said quietly, today is the day you finally face real consequences for 3 years of federal crimes. I pulled out my phone and showed her a text message from Agent Chun, in position waiting for your signal. Maya's face went white. You called the FBI? I called the FBI at exactly 3 p.m. When the ceremony was supposed to begin. Richard's groomsmen were positioned at all the exits while Richard himself stood at the altar with a wireless microphone instead of waiting for his bride. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice echoing clearly through the Flowerfield Chapel, I need to make an important announcement before we proceed with today's ceremony. Maya appeared at the back of the aisle in her stunning wedding dress, confusion rapidly turning to panic as she realized something was terribly wrong with the scene before her. It has come to my attention through irrefutable evidence, Richard continued, his voice steady and clear, that my fiancé has been living an elaborate lie, not just to me but to everyone gathered here today. He held up the thick folder of credit reports and financial documents. Maya has systematically stolen her twin sister's identity for 3 years. She's accumulated nearly $50,000 in fraudulent debt in her sister's name. She's never held the nonprofit job she claimed to have. She's never had the savings account she claimed to possess. Everything about our relationship and this wedding has been built on criminal fraud. The chapel erupted in shocked gasps and Murmur's guests turned to stare at Maya, who stood frozen in the aisle. Maya started walking toward the altar, desperately, her face a mask of panic. Richard, please, let me explain. This is all a misunderstanding. The woman you think you know as Maya has been committing federal crimes that would have made me an unwitting accomplice after marriage, he said firmly. I will not legally bind myself to a criminal who has been using my financial information to commit additional fraud. Richard's family looked mortified and angry. Our parents appeared stricken with disbelief and shame. Ma's bridesmaids stared in complete shock, their bouquets forgotten in their hands. But I still wasn't finished with my plan. I stood up slowly from my seat in the front row, turning to face the entire congregation. Maya, you have exactly two choices right now, I called out, my voice carrying clearly across the suddenly silent chapel. You can confess everything publicly right here, right now, and work with me to fix the financial damage you've caused, or I can signal the FBI agent who's waiting outside in the parking lot to come in and arrest you in front of everyone you know. Ma's face completely crumpled as the reality of her situation finally hit her. She looked desperately around the chapel, at Richard's disgusted expression, at his parents' cold judgmental stares, at our mother's tears of shame, at the guests who were pulling out their phones to record her humiliation. I never meant for any of it to go this far, she whispered into the microphone, her voice breaking. Tell them everything, I said firmly, my voice unwavering. Tell them exactly what you've done and how long you've been doing it. What followed was the most complete and humiliating confession I'd ever witnessed in my life. Maya admitted to opening numerous accounts in my name using my social security number. She confessed to using my credit to fund her entire lifestyle for years. She acknowledged lying about her job, her income, her savings, her entire financial identity. She admitted to forging my signature dozens of times on important financial documents. She described how she'd memorized my personal information and used it to convince bank representatives that she was me, how she'd intercepted mail and statements to hide her crimes, how she'd deliberately gotten me turned down for apartments and loans to cover her tracks. The confession went on for nearly 20 minutes, with Maya detailing crime after crime, while the chapel sat in stunned silence. Richard's father stood up abruptly, his face red with anger. This wedding is officially over. Security will escort anyone who wishes to leave immediately. Half the chapel emptied within minutes, guests practically running to avoid being associated with the scandal. The other half stayed to watch the complete social and financial meltdown happening before their eyes. Richard approached Mia at the altar, removing his binder and dropping it at her feet. We're done forever, he said simply but firmly. I'll be filing a comprehensive police report about the fraudulent financial information you provided me. You used my income and employment details to qualify for additional credit cards in your sister's name. That makes me a victim of your crimes too. Maya collapsed into a chair at the altar, still wearing her expensive wedding dress, mascara and foundation streaking down her face as she sobbed uncontrollably. Our mother approached the altar, her face a mixture of shame and heartbreak. Maya, how could you do this to your own sister? To your family? Mia looked up at her through tears. I never meant to hurt anyone, I just needed money and it seemed so easy. Easy, I said, walking up to join them. Destroying my credit, ruining my future, stealing my identity. That seemed easy to you. You always had everything figured out, Maya said bitterly. Good grades, good job. Everyone always said you were the responsible one. I just wanted to have nice things too, so you decided to steal them from me. But my revenge plan still wasn't completely finished. The reception was supposed to take place at the same venue immediately following the ceremony. 200 guests, a 5-course gourmet dinner, premium open bar, live band, elaborate floral arrangements, everything charged to my stolen credit cards. Over the past several months, I found the catering manager in the kitchen overseeing final preparations for a reception that would never happen. I need to speak with you urgently about payment for today's entire reception, I said seriously. She looked confused and slightly panicked. Everything's been completely handled. Maya prepaid everything months ago through our payment plan. I showed her the vendor contracts, every single one containing the liability clauses I'd carefully crafted with legal assistance. Actually, everything was charged to fraudulent credit cards that were opened illegally in my name. This entire event was paid for with stolen funds that are now being investigated by federal authorities. The manager's eyes widened in horror as she understood the implications. What exactly does that mean for our business and today's reception? It means Maya is personally responsible for the full cost of everything, I explained calmly, and since the credit cards were fraudulent, you'll need to collect payment directly from her before serving any food or alcohol. The catering manager immediately called her supervisor, who called the venue owner, who called their attorney. Within an hour, Mia was presented with bills totaling $23,000 for the reception costs. I watched with satisfaction as Mia tried desperately to explain to the increasingly angry venue staff that she couldn't possibly pay such an enormous amount immediately, that all her available money was tied up in accounts that were now frozen by fraud investigations, that she needed time to figure things out and make payment arrangements. Ma'am, the venue manager said firmly, if full payment isn't resolved immediately, we'll need to cancel the entire reception and involve our legal team to recover our costs. This constitutes fraud against our business as well. Mia turned frantically to her parents, to Richard's remaining family members, to her bridesmaids, to anyone who might be willing to help her, but the room was emptying rapidly as people distanced themselves from the scandal. No one wanted to be associated with a confirmed fraudster and identity thief. Her bridesmaids, still in their lavender dresses, approached her cautiously. Maya, one of them said carefully, we need to know, did you pay for our spa day and dresses with stolen money too? Mia's silence was answer enough. The bridesmaids exchanged horrified looks and began removing their bouquets and jewelry. We can't be part of this, another bridesmaid said. We had no idea we were accessories to credit card fraud. One by one, Mia's support system crumbled around her as people realized the extent of her deception by 5 p.m. And the venue was completely empty except for catering staff cleaning up and removing decorations, security guards ensuring no one stole anything, and a very expensive 3-tier wedding cake that would never be served to celebrating guests. The cake alone had cost $800 charged to my mastercard. Maya found me in the parking lot as I was loading evidence boxes into my car preparing to drive to the FBI field office. "This is all your fault," she hissed venomously, still wearing her wedding dress but now looking disheveled and desperate. "You deliberately ruined my wedding day out of pure spite and jealousy." I looked at her, still in her designer gown, makeup completely ruined, standing completely alone in an empty parking lot surrounded by the debris of her collapsed life. "No, Maya, you ruined your own wedding when you decided to build your entire life on lies, theft, and criminal fraud." "I'll fix everything," she said, desperately grabbing my arm with surprising strength. "I'll pay you back every penny. I'll make this right. I'll get a job and work for the rest of my life to repay you. You'll face the legal consequences of your crimes," I said, removing her hand from my arm. "The FBI is officially investigating now based on the evidence I've provided. Richard's pressing criminal charges for the fraudulent information you gave him. The venue is suing for fraudulent payment methods, and every credit card company has your real name and address now." Agent Chen approached us from across the parking lot, flanked by 2 other federal agents. "Maya Thompson," she said formally, "I'm Agent Chen with the FBI. We need you to come with us for questioning regarding multiple counts of identity theft and credit card fraud." Maya's face went completely white. "I want a lawyer." "That's your right," Agent Chen replied, "but based on the evidence we've reviewed and the confession you made in front of over 100 witnesses, I'm placing you under arrest." I watched as they read Maya her rights and escorted her to their vehicle, still wearing her wedding dress. The last thing I saw was her looking back at me through the car window, her face a mixture of hatred and defeat. I drove away slowly, leaving behind the ruins of what should have been the happiest day of her life. The investigation moved quickly from there. Mia's crimes were so well documented that prosecutors called it one of the most clear-cut identity theft cases they'd ever seen. The evidence I'd gathered was comprehensive and irrefutable. Mia's court-appointed lawyer advised her to plead guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence. The alternative was going to trial with overwhelming evidence against her, which could have resulted in a much longer prison term. 3 months later, Mia stood before a federal judge and pleaded guilty to multiple federal charges, including identity theft, credit card fraud, mail fraud, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. She received 18 months in federal prison and was ordered to pay full restitution, every penny she'd stolen from me, plus interest, penalties, and damages. The total amount came to $67. Richard married his college girlfriend the following spring. Someone who actually existed and had her own legitimate income and credit history. Someone who didn't need to steal another person's identity to afford her lifestyle. At his new wedding, which I attended as a guest, Richard's best man made a toast about the importance of honesty and trust in relationships. Everyone who had been at Maya's attempted wedding understood the deeper meaning. I got my credit completely restored, my name legally cleared, and my financial future back on track. It took nearly 2 years of paperwork, phone calls, and legal proceedings, but every fraudulent account was closed and every negative mark was removed from my credit report. The apartment I'd originally been denied, I was approved immediately. Once my real credit score was restored, I moved in 6 months after Mia's sentencing, finally able to afford the place I dreamed of. Maya served her full sentence in federal prison. I heard from our mother that prison was difficult for her. She wasn't used to having no money, no luxury items, no way to manipulate people into giving her what she wanted. And Maya, now she was released 8 months ago and works at a grocery store in our hometown, living in our parents' basement, paying me $200 every month for the rest of her natural life. Every monthly payment comes with a handwritten note that says the same thing: "I'm sorry for what I did to you. I know I can never undo the damage, but I'm trying to make it right." It's not nearly enough to undo the years of damage she caused, the stress, the humiliation, the financial devastation, the time lost fighting to restore my identity, but it's a start toward real accountability. Sometimes I see her at the grocery store when I'm shopping. She always looks away, unable to meet my eyes. She knows that everyone in town knows what she did. Her reputation never recovered from the public confession at her failed wedding. Richard occasionally sends me updates on his life. He's happily married now with a baby on the way. He thanks me regularly for saving him from what would have been a disastrous marriage built on lies. Maya never married. According to our mother, she hasn't dated anyone since her release from prison. Apparently, it's difficult to build relationships when you have a federal fraud conviction and everyone knows you're capable of stealing your own sister's identity. The experience changed me in ways I'm still understanding. I learned that sometimes you have to create your own justice when the system fails you. I learned that family loyalty has limits, especially when that family member is actively destroying your life. Most importantly, I learned that revenge, when executed perfectly, can be far more satisfying than forgiveness. Maya destroyed my credit, but I destroyed her entire future. She stole my identity for 3 years, but I made sure she'll be paying for it for the rest of her life. Every month when that $200 payment arrives with its apologetic note, I'm reminded that some actions have permanent consequences. Maya learned that lesson the hard way in front of everyone who mattered to her on what should have been the happiest day of her life, and honestly, I sleep better at night knowing that justice was finally served, even if I had to serve it